Hello, everyone. Welcome back to day 2 of the 2022 League of Legends College Championship. We're in the round of 16. I will be your host, guiding you through this week's top 16 matches, alongside my good friend and big brain analyst, TJ Bjorklund, who's been with me the whole time. TJ, how you feeling, my friend, after those games yesterday?
Well, yesterday we had a ton of exciting games. I'm expecting the same thing today based on the teams that we have. So I'm looking forward to some more collegiate League of Legends where we never know who's going to win.
That's the best part of collegiate, man. That is the best part of collegiate. You've got just wild games, but that's not all. We're joined for today's matches. We've replaced Joshi, and we've brought in Solo, the LCS top laner. I'm sure you guys are familiar with him. Solo, how are you feeling about being on the college broadcast and being part of this space?
I'm looking forward to it. I mean, college is always funny because it's a lot of challenger players you see, a lot of new talent, and they definitely know how to throw a fiesta in a lot of these games. So I'm down to watch and analyze a little bit.
Yeah, we'll certainly get into some players that you're familiar with, whether through solo queue or through the amateur space, but we'll get there in due time. I do want to start first with taking a look at some of the matches that happened yesterday, catch people up with what teams have already qualified for Los Angeles. So taking a look at this bracket, TJ, walk us through some of the games that happened yesterday.
Well, yesterday, round of 16 has been considered kind of like the finals for this, based on how the bracket has been gone out. We have Winthrop, previous season's champions, against Colorado Boulder, who upset previously. Winthrop obviously did take the win. Maryville versus UB hasn't yet happened. That's today. UST happened, and University of Michigan ended up with a potential win against UST. So that was an exciting game to watch. And then live on our stream, we had Western versus GVU, an incredibly close series. That was super exciting. I'm sure we have the other side of the bracket. Super close. Like 2-0 does not do it justice. We also had the MSU versus Harrisburg series, which again, super close. There was like a 10K gold lead for Harrisburg. They ended up losing. And then obviously we have all the games happening today, which are again poised to be super exciting based on how this bracket randomized out this year.
Yeah, I mean, it honestly is going to be incredible. We have so many great matchups that we are looking forward to today. And speaking of, let's take a look at today's schedule. So over here on the LCS stream, we will be starting with Bay State versus St. Louis University. And at 3 o'clock Pacific, we will be having UC Irvine versus Illinois State. 4 incredibly strong teams. And over on the second stream, Unified Live, Maryville versus U Buffalo Esports. U Buffalo is a team that's very personal to me. And then at 3 o'clock Pacific time, we will be having Arizona State versus Converse Esports. Go ASU. I love those boys over on that team. So just exciting matches all around to close out the round of 16. And just to reiterate to everybody out there, top 8 is in person in Los Angeles. So if you win in the round of 16, it means a lot. So teams are very, very excited to get the win in this round of 16. But let's take a look specifically at the two teams that we will have in our first series today. We have Bay State College and St. Louis University. TJ, talk a little bit about the differences between these programs and then maybe get into the teams a little.
So both of the teams are full ride programs, or rather extreme scholarship programs where they're playing to win. SLU has brought in 5, fairly well-known names. Bay State brought in a bunch of members that they view as really highly regarded. And they're definitely all competing to try to win the left side of the bracket. With that in mind, going into Bay State, they do have Bejjj, Dragonminkim, DMK, Seranok, Sophist, and Swordblue. So all known names, played in Challenger. I'm personally most excited to see the top lane matchup there. I think that Bejjj has a little bit to prove from the last round. But then outside of that, we have an incredibly exciting mid lane matchup where Seranok is looking to gap the pretty well-known Strompest. So I'm excited to see what Bay State has to bring today.
Oh, it's going to be good stuff all around. I mean, honestly, some very, very, very exciting matchups. But now that we've talked a little bit about Bay State and their roster, let's shift gears towards St. Louis University. So, TJ, again, walk us through St. Louis's roster and maybe some differences that you maybe see and some ways that they could exploit Bay State.
Sure. So I think that SLU has a lot more team cohesion. They've played together for longer. They came from amateur together. Cozy Shroud has been looking extremely impressive in the top lane. They have Matty in the jungle, who's pretty controlled and understands map states. Strompest, very volatile, high action gameplay, octane gaming type of guy. That's always exciting to watch. And then their bot lane, Doxa, formerly a mid laner, has role swapped. So You never know what's going to happen there. And then Teesum, who's kind of a long-standing veteran. So I'm really excited for SLU because I think they're coming in today to try to prove that their performances in the past haven't necessarily determined who they're going to be in the future here. They're looking to show up some expectations and prove that they do want to be a top contender in this series.
Are there any players on either of these rosters, Solo, that you may have caught in solo queue or that you know of personally? I'm interested to hear your opinion on some of them.
Yeah, I know a few of these guys. I'm probably most familiar with Strompest because he's definitely been around the longest.
Yeah.
For me, I think that the Bejjj guy is a really good Jace player. Obviously, Jace is a little bit nerfed now, so I'm not really sure how much prior they'll put on that. But I also want to give a shout out to Dragonminkim because that guy is actually really quite good. I've always thought he was probably one of the better solo queue junglers that I've run into. So a lot of weight on the top jungle for that team to kind of carry, I think.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. Those are some of the biggest names, not only in collegiate, but like you said, the solo queue ladder, they're always at the top. They're always trying to, I mean, Dragonminkim went to, I believe it was Brazil or some South American region to try and go pro there. And, good to see him back in this space. But now that we've talked a little bit about both of these teams specifically, we do have sort of a head-to-head matchup between two players that we think could dominate this series. TJ, talk about these mid laners a little.
So I'm very familiar with both of these mid laners. I've played against both of them. I think that they're a very similar branch of player where they really want to make aggressive plays on their own. They want to control the game. They want to be the flashy kills and really dictate the pace of the game. Here we see some stats from the regular season. And so know that this is not from the round of 32, but just the regular where each conference is a little bit different. And we have their favorite characters pictured. Strompest is incredibly well known for his Rise, and Seranok, Zoe, and all of the artillery mages, long-range characters, are kind of his specialty. It is important to note that the players are on live today, so both Zoe and Xerath have been buffed, and Seranok might pull those out today, which is always exciting because it's kind of hard to do with poke champions if you're not super coordinated as a team.
Yeah, and honestly, taking a look at one of these clips, I mean, we see Seranok on the Zoe, and he's a player who's always fascinated me, right? Like he has this sort of off-meta champion pool. Not to say that Zoe's not meta, but he's always willing to just play whatever he's comfortable on. And what sort of value do you think, Solo, having played at such a high level before, having a player who's very comfortable on their champion pool, what difference does that make for a team?
Well, I think it adds a lot, mostly because you're going to have a really easy team identity to work with. I think that's probably one of the best things to do, when, especially if you have a team like a lot of these collegiates where you don't have the widest champion pool. Just knowing that you have guys who, are going to get theirs and get on their stuff and be able to produce, it's going to mean a lot for your team when it comes to draft and in game.
And collegiate is so much less about who can play the most meta characters and really min-max like the best pick at all points. It's more about what advantages can you create, where are you comfortable, and it forces a lot of target bans from people. We'll see the collegiate teams be incredibly respectful of, hey guys, this person has 800 games on Alawi. We should probably ban it because we just don't play against Alawi often. So maybe the player that is an underdog situation comes out huge off the fact that they're so comfortable on a different character.
That reminds me of yesterday, Sunlight and the Garen ban every single game. He said he got to 1500 LP playing only Garen or mostly Garen. So the fact that, I mean, teams are willing to ban those kind of champs. So we'll have to see if some of those poke artillery mages come out. But I do want to talk a little bit. Bay State last week was pretty clean games, right? Nothing too surprising there. But I feel like SLU struggled a little bit. That series was a little bit closer than some people thought for a team that many had, as a top 4 program going into this year. TJ, we do have a couple clips pulled from SLU last week. What do you think happened in that first game that ended up losing them the game?
Sure. So it is important to note that Bay State played against a much easier opponent than SLU did. SLU is here up against York, who has a lot of high-ranked players, just maybe not as known players. We see in this clip that Cozy Shroud, the Aatrox, had an incredible flank. He's able to control what's going on and really have a high impact. So I think there's a lot of positives to that, where on an individual perspective or a team perspective, you understand what you're going to do. We're not exactly sure who that's coming from at any given point, but it exists. Unfortunately, it doesn't exist at all points. And that's where kind of the problem gets in, is where if you let it falter, a team that maybe is less favored in the matchup in collegiate can come ahead and grab a win. So here we see SLU's or York's jungler Monka finds a stacked up enemy. He's able to find a 4-man kick, and SLU gets womboed. So great combo, looks super cool. But really, this is an error on SLU's side, because they have a 10k gold lead at this point, and the game is effectively won as long as they play the team fight properly. So I'd love to see some more discipline from the players that we know are extremely good, so they can just net the wins that they deserve.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I do have a question though. I think we're in agreement that York is not as good as Bay State is, right? Bay State, just the player name value, their pedigree in the space. So the fact that they're able to drop a game and play that sloppy against York, do you think, Solo, potentially that could mean that these matches against Bay State are a little bit scarier?
I mean, for sure, I do think that this team's a little bit better. So you can't have those mistakes going into these games. I think they're going to have to be a little bit more tight on their team fighting, and then, that'll give them a much better chance, so they can't have those kind of big blunders in your matches.
I think it's super important. I think it's super important to note that SLU did end up winning the next 2 games extremely well, in relatively convincing fashion. But more importantly is that both teams today are extremely good. Again, they have really high-ranked players, and at the end of the day, every series comes down to who wants to win the most on the day, who shows up, who is the most disciplined, who did the best preparation. And so really at the end of the day, either of the teams is able to take it, and I'm not too concerned about those falters because both teams have made significant falters just like any other team.
Yeah.
And it will just come down to the day.
Yeah.
And whoever drafts Ornn is gonna win.
True.
Good to know that you're already indoctrinated in the collegiate Ornn supremacy, the NA playoff supremacy too. I mean, the champ is just so good. So we'll have to see if either top laner is willing to pick it up, but we do have a Jace one trick and an Akali one trick, so I don't know if either of those guys really want to pick up the Ornn.
They're former.
Former.
They're developing.
They've evolved.
I have to help out my one tricks here, okay? Like, I was
just got the whips.
You do not want to be called the one trick. These players are developing. Let's not do them like that. Come on.
For sure. But we do only have a couple minutes before we throw it over to draft. I do want to get your guys' takes on who is going to come out on top with this first series. So let's dive into the predictions. Let's see what you guys have laid out. And over there on the bottom, it looks like I'm the lone Bay State College supporter. TJ, I'll start with you, my friend. SLU 2-1. Why do you think that?
So I think SLU's going to win because they have more experience together, and I think that Bay State's weaker links are weaker than SLU's links. I think that Bay State has a relatively good matchup in terms of being able to find kills and advantages, but I think that the experience of SLU together and just the overall skill is a little bit higher, and I think that will result in a pretty scrappy series here, but eventually come out with a SLU win.
Solo, your thoughts, my friend?
You nailed it, man. No, yeah, I mean, I think those players, you have a lot more experience in this than I do, but those players definitely, on paper to me, seem a lot better, and they do have a little bit of experience together. I will say, I wouldn't be surprised if Dragonminkim ended up carrying, and, they ended up winning that way, Bay State. But I think I'm going to put an easy bet on SLU for sure.
Easy,
okay. All right, we'll see. We'll have to see how this series unfolds. I do think that Bay State, personally, I do like Dragonminkim a lot. I do think that Seranok has a good champion pool for this meta personally. And like you were saying, TJ, in sort of our prep for this series, they do have a really good understanding how to play these long-range comps. They're very good at Jhin. They're very good at Xerath. They're very good at Zoe. These long-range poke comps. You throw an Ornn into that equation to get some engage going for the team, and I really do think there's some potential there. 40 seconds until we get into the draft. TJ, any final thoughts, any parting thoughts before our desk wraps up?
Yeah, I had the opportunity to go to the LA studio myself to play during collegiate, and just know that every player here wants to do that. It is so exciting that they go on the stage that they've been working for so long. They really do believe that they can become like the next big player. And so at the end of the day, I would love to see the players put really their heart into the games today. It doesn't matter how good your season goes or how good on paper you are if you don't show up on the day and create the win that you need.
I love it. Words of wisdom from our former collegiate superstar, TJ. You guys have waited long enough, It's time to kick it over to the casters, Rebel Fox and Travysty, to take us through our first match in day 2 of the round of 16. Gentlemen, take it away.
And we are ready for what is a fantastic start to today. We're starting it off with a fantastic matchup of Bay State College taking on St. Louis. Rebel, it's looking like it's going to be a fun one.
I've been preparing over the last couple of weeks for all of the emotional turmoil that I've had to go through, and I feel like I've spent all of my preparation in round of 32 and just first day of round of 16 games. So, man, I'm going to be shattered after today, where we have another set of fantastic series between very competitive teams. And this is, of course, the series that's going to do it, because you got Bay State up against SLU. SLU's coming from not only the Northern Conference, where I spend a lot of my time, but also from right now my hometown of St. Louis. So they're right down the road from me. I could go talk to them if I wanted to right now with a 20-minute drive.
Dude, that's insane to be able to think about. And we have... They have a lot of competition in front of them, right? They have Bay State, which are no slouches by any means.
Yeah, Bay State has they've taken a roster where last year they didn't end up being able to participate in the top 32, despite being a team that was capable of qualifying for such. They weren't able to actually make it into the top 32 in the first place. They came back with a new revitalized roster, where in previous iterations they were focusing on top lane. They said, let's rebuild around the bottom side, and they've had a roster that's been prepared since basically in the midst of the summer. And since then, we've seen them grow a tremendous amount, both positionally, individually, as a full 5-man unit. And now they've gone from, I know Colomer is really famous for this, but I know a lot of people shared the opinion that Bay State was kind of iffy, and they had their moments where they looked like they should be a top team, but they just weren't, and so nobody did consider them, to now being probably one of the favorites, in my opinion, inside of the entire tournament. And they're up against SLU, which is another team that I know both of us have a very high opinion of, which is what makes this matchup so electric, because these two teams have been performing at a very high level, top 8 in collegiate, since last summer.
And they're also very aggressive too, right? These are two teams that are not slouches. They have a very similar strategy of they are going to overpower and overwhelm their opponent. And that's what we have to look forward to, Rebel. We have two squads that are ready to contest one another at every step forward they take. We're going into draft. We got St. Louis over on blue. We have Bay State on red.
And you think about some of the amazing polarization that we have, not only in the draft, but just from the players themselves. You think about SLU, the name that comes to mind immediately, I think, is Strompest, who's played inside of Academy, inside of a lot of amateur teams, has been just kind of a really incredible force in the mid lane in all of, slightly below professional play here in North America for literally years. Showing up here on the SLU roster was nothing short of incredible star power being signed to the St. Louis squad. And on the other side, you have, very similar things where you see like DMK, who is known for a very long time inside of amateur play, was on C9 Academy Academy for just a little bit of time. Seranok, who's played professionally as well in the LLA as well. You have a lot of players with very storied histories that also have very unique type of champion pools, and I'm excited to get to explore today, because again, this is collegiate. We don't get boring drafts most of the time. We get very, very high juice drafts for every single series that we end up in.
And you can already see the fans are very targeted. From SLU, they say, yo, Dragonminkim, let's shrink down that champion pool. Get rid of Lee Sin, get rid of Jarvan, get rid of two of those champions that DMK likes to be aggressive on. And you already see Bay State saying, okay, you know what, Cozy? The Shroud, we know what that stands for. That's for the Akali main that's inside of you that will come out. We're not giving that as easy as you may want.
And interestingly, we actually see a little bit more jungle flexibility with Matty being taken off of his Olaf. But the one that pops into your brain to start off is, of course, the Lilia. It's Matty's Lily. He's arguably, if not just outright, one of, if not the best Lilias in North America. Not just the collegiate space, in all of North America. But the question mark here is, does DMK believe he has champions in his pool to counteract that? Because they're not banning it quite yet. And junglers have been taken off the board in ridiculous spades at this moment. But both the Kindred is left up, which has been DMK's kind of hallmark here in this tournament, and in some of the later stages, the more recency of what Bay State's been able to operate on, as has the Lilia. Do we get the matchup to kick things off here with the junglers?
I don't know. Lucian is banned. So the Volibear is the answer. SLU say, all right, we'll grab that. And that's Matty looking to facilitate. This is a jungler who is looking to be the glue, the cohesiveness that this team needs as they press forward inside the game. Now, Bay State get their answer back.
Yeah, I'm a little upset that we don't get Matty game number 1 on the Lilia, but it makes sense. It's a very widely applicable champion. Extremely powerful is the Volibear in the modern era. Difficult to try to aggress against at the beginning of the game. Makes a massive impact. Exactly the type of champion that Matty is going to be able to pilot to help counteract some of the early pressure that DMK often likes to put on. And this would be a play. Not only are you grabbing the Gangplank for Bejjj to carry on, who is a very good Gangplank player in his own right, a very good carry player when he's set up to do so, but also to have double global composition, where now you can affect from so far away. It's an immediate statement here for Bay State, wanting to say that they can actually make a counter move no matter where St. Louis decides to lean a lot of their resources.
This is crazy scary too because of how global this is. But the answer, the response from SLU is say, all right, cool, we see you having all this global pressure. We're going to get someone that can move around in the mid lane. See what the Nets' answer is. They still have quite a few champions they can select for themselves.
They do. I want to see what the response is to Gangplank in the top lane for Cozy, because obviously we know him as an Akali player, but has a number of other carries inside of the wheelhouse, or does he go to something like the Ornn, which is another option to try to cancel out the laning phase in its entirety, just to make sure that doesn't come through. This, to me, is a little bit more interesting because it is a preemptive take. Oftentimes, Swordblue will default to the Nautilus support pick that comes out from Bay State as that bot lane pairing with Sophist stage, which we'll come back to in a little bit, wanting to talk about that bot lane and the combination that they're able to make, because of how mean that it can be. But the Nautilus is preemptive to make sure they don't get that combination. They don't have Swordblue on that real true comfort in the support position. The response, of course, Vex. We know Seranok is liking these champions with heavy range to be able to work with, a lot of effective team fights, and this is a champion he can do exactly that with, and I love the matchup between the Ahri and the Vex. It's always interesting to watch between mid laners.
It's always a good one, and I like this. Now, look at this. AD carry pool is getting pinched down tremendously between the two teams. The one role that they know is definitively not selected, and favorites from Doxa taken away, and I'm kind of curious, you know, the Kai'Sa has been a thing that's been taken from Sage. I'm curious if the Ezreal will break through. That's another thing that we've seen Sage popping off on. Jeans actually might be the ban.
Actually not anticipating potentially an Ezreal coming out here, because I feel like it would be a little bit too low scaling for a team like this from Bay State. If they do take it, it's more of a takeaway from Doxa, because if you look at this, you see the amount of pressure they could put onto an ADC in the backline from St. Louis. This is, Doxa. He's an incredibly well-rounded mid laner and has shown some positive play at the ADC role. They've taken him off of a lot of the champions that he would have been noticed to play for a significant portion of the season, and now they have Vex to dive, they've got Nocturne dive, they've got Cannon Barrage. How are you supposed to stand still? How are you supposed to deliver auto attacks if you're Doxa in a game like this? I do like that they find him a champion that is workable. The Kai'Sa did get nerfed this patch, the AP Kai'Sa at least, but at least it's something that I know Doxa was playing in the mid lane, so has some versatility on the champion to be able to work with, with that flexibility between the pool that happened over the last couple patches. At least he found an ADC that he's played before to have to deal with all of these global pressure that Bay State can apply.
Yeah, usually when you talk about the mid laners going to the bot lane, they usually talk about that. But oh, that is a Vladimir at the very end. Some spice in the top lane coming out from Cozy.
This is really interesting. I've heard good things about Vladimir. We don't see it in competitive play all that often. I think it got banned just yesterday in one of the matchups that had occurred. But we haven't really seen it pop up all that much in competitive play pretty much anywhere. This is the first iteration of it, and it's going into Cozy's hands, which is perhaps the most interesting, because we know how good of a carry that Cozy can be. I was talking about the difference between him playing something that can carry alongside the Gangplank and just letting this top lane be, and picking something that's more lane neutralizing to ensure Bejjj doesn't have any kind of scaling potential with like an Ornn to be be able to take an engagement or something. They must feel like something like Ornn is just too slow. It's not going to be able to counteract the Gangplank, and that the Nocturne can throw a wrench into all of your engagement kind of options. So instead they say, okay, Cozy, we'll drop damage on you. You're just going to scale alongside the Gangplank. You're going to do everything that you can. You're not going to die. It's going to be super safe. It should be easy enough to try to counteract ganks, as long as they don't bring 3 members up the top side. And they're hoping they can outscale right here against Bay State.
Yeah, the outskill angle is possibly there. I'm a little bit concerned though, because like you were just talking about, there's this global dive aspect that comes out. Nocturne Gangplank is already something that's pretty scary. You turn the lights out, all of a sudden there's artillery falling from the sky. There is a Vex diving in. There's a true shot barrage you can't see coming. That's a lot of terrifying tools that can hit you all of a sudden underneath these towers. And I feel like Bay State have a composition that plays a lot to their strengths of being the aggressive team, especially in that early to mid-game transition.
The thing I like about Bay State's composition when you're comparing them just at immediate face value is that you've got Bejjj to work with, like in terms of damage from a distance. You've got Cannon Barrage and Barrels, but you have also an incredible amount of engage range with like the Nocturne with the Vex to be able to close distance. Leona helps with this as well. And Ezreal's really safe, but also puts out damage from a decent distance too. And it's not going to be the AP variant of Kai'Sa, almost certainly, with double AP in both your mid and top lane, even though that was nerfed and was already not going to be the case. But Doxa means he's on the Kai'Sa, he's on a lower range ADC with a lot of mobility to try to survive some of these tools that they're using to dive. But it's the same thing where Vladimir is going to have to be up close in your face. Volibear is the same way. Nocturne's, or my apologies, Nautilus is the same way. And it means that SLU wants to fight as one big cluster. They want a death ball in a composition to fight immediately against Bay State. And to me, that opens up Bay State potentially to try to use their composition from a further distance. Any advantage that Bay State accrues here over top of SLU is one that they can push even further by utilizing these semi-globals to just break apart a fight before SLU has all 5 members readily available.
But the chunkiness of this wrecking ball that they have is on Matty, and Matty is the facilitator of this team. We talked about it a little bit, you and me, where we've said, you know, Matty is kind of the glue. He's cohesive. He has played with Cozy and Strompest in the past, in previous iterations back in the amateur scene. He knows how these two solo laners play, and these are two solo laners that can pop off immensely. We know Ahri has a lot of priority, has a lot of play that they can create in their own economy, but you see Cozy, you see the Vladimir, you get a Vladimir ahead. We've seen the nightmare scenarios that can come about with that. So I'm personally keeping my eyes on Matty just because, like you said, they're going to come in as a ball, but the heaviest member of the ball, the one that's going to put the most weight, that's going to put the biggest dent into Bay State, does feel like it's Matty.
And here, kicking off game number 1 of the round of 16 between St. Louis University and Bay State. Expectations set very high for what Matty's able to accomplish. I talked about it. I think early game, if things go poorly for the side of St. Louis, I think it's really difficult to continue to play out a game unless you just are able to sandbag and hyperscale into like 4-item territory. At that point, then it just becomes about being able to get into position to fight around neutral objectives. But the beginning of the game changes so much of how we expect things to go. So we're watching for Matty to make an impact before DMK makes his massive impact. That's the biggest thing that I think you were trying to hammer home with Matty as being this wrecking ball, is the earlier impact that Matty's able to have. The more disruption, the more summoner spells you burnt, the more defensive tools that are taken away from Bay State to allow them to make this access, to allow them to be able to capitalize on some of the potential that is held with a bunch of these semi-globals. The easier it is to stall out Bay State, the easier it is to get the Vladimir online and to play around these big 5-on-5 team fights where the Vladimir and the Kai'Sa are looking to play around in this game.
Now I gotta ask, Rebel, this is an Ignite Ghost Vladimir. How do you feel with that? The summoners of choice from Shroud.
I feel like Cozy's a Chad for this. he also takes Ahri for an aggressive trading pattern. Like, there's so many different keystones that I don't think Vladimir has a particularly amazing keystone at the moment. So there's like always been Phase Rush. There's been a couple other ones, like Predator is one that I love to use when you're roaming out and about on the map. But this is him saying in the one-on-one against Bejjj, he believes that the Vladimir can actually take the pure one-on-one. He believes in the ability of this champion to be able to compete with the Gangplank in just the laning phase, which it's dangerous when you're playing up against the Trial by Fire, the early poking, you have the Ignite on Bejjj as well as the Grasp. There's a lot of things that this Gangplank can do. We'll see if either jungler actually meanders their way up here to try to make an impact, because again, these are two scaling picks. If one gets an advantage over the other in the laning phase, it becomes very difficult to manage. And they're both incredible team fighters as well. So setting yourself off to a good foot for either team is a very valuable thing, which is why, again, Matty ending up on top side, trying to find a gank and setting behind Bejjj, but also setting ahead the Vladimir before DMK can do it, before Seranok can control mid lane and start making a massive impact, before some of the things from Bay State that we've seen them begin capitalizing on over the course of the season really come to fruition. That, to me, is what we're looking at. So keep your eyes on the Volibear.
Eyes on the Volibear. Also, Dragonminkim and is following the same path as this Volibear, so potential for a counter gank if we do run into that scenario. And you know what? If Matty's looking to gank a lane, you were talking about it, the build path for Kai'Sa has kind of gone back more so to that AD build, and Kai'Sa ever so item dependent as a champion. What a champion to get ahead to start being able to start swinging advantages throughout the map.
So you do see the Matty path from top to bottom. I wonder if they are going to try to break loose this bottom lane a little bit, because the Kai'Sa doesn't have wave clear superiority over the Ezreal until you guarantee that the Q is going to be upgraded, which is not for 2-3 backs. Depending on exactly when you're taking those timers, that kind of thing. So it's enough to pay attention. Nice hook.
Yeah, nice hook. Swordblue in a terrible situation is using the Xenoblade. Beautiful usage of it, but the stun is still there. It is a kill. Going to Matty. DMK is here. He gets the fear. Sage, double buff complete. And now Teesum is in for a world of pain. A double kill going to Bay State. Doxa needs to be careful. These trades will hurt. We'll say, okay, disengage. But what a bit of chaos there, Rebel.
And what an incredible start to a game like this, because these two are pushed up on bottom side with the knowledge of knowing that DMK is around here with the Nocturne. Swordblue, impossible to take down. He's got the Aftershock, not Glacial, and with the W, look how much damage he absorbs to buy time for DMK to show up for this counter gank. And everything had been burnt. There's nothing left to stop them from just running you down. And better than all of that, I think it would have been better to split them between the Nocturne and the Ezreal, but 2 kills onto Sophist, a member that we have high expectations on. A member that really has come into his own over the course of Bay State's last couple of months, is now up 2 kills in the bottom lane.
And we're not done yet, as it is a kill for the Vladimir. What a critical gank for Matty to make, or to get Crozy going on a little bit further.
And it's our expectation, again, trying to make sure that this is set up properly, because now with a gold advantage, if you can get a little bit of armor, maybe you go into like the Seeker's Arm Guard to start things off, then the Gangplank has a tougher time in laning outright against the Vladimir. And it means that this more aggressive setup with Ghost and Ignite and an aggressive trading pattern with like the Ahri just wanting to drop damage into Bejjj again and again and again, it could mean that, you know, Cozy is set up for himself to actually carry his own laning phase, rather than needing a bunch of attention. Matty can instead put that pressure elsewhere on the map, trying to help out Strompest, trying to help out Doxa on the bottom side, and again, salvaging the early game, making sure they get to the phase of the game where they're comfortable with their 5-on-5.
I just love the fact that Matty goes for one gank, dies, and immediately says, all right, I'm running directly to the top side of the map. Didn't grab a single camp, just immediately bolted it to top side, and he almost went for a third gank, right? He was like, all right, now Seranok, you're next. But Matty, this is the kind of aggression. This is what we wanted to see from this Volibear pick. We wanted to see them make a presence known on the map, especially pre-6, before we start seeing those ultimates coming online for Bay State.
It was necessary, but the other issue is that you've done nothing to slow down DMK. So level 6 is coming. It's coming a lot faster than what Volibear is going to be able to have. And at that level 6 mark, you have the fear of the dive from, you know, the Nocturne coming into pretty much any lane alongside the Cannon Barrage. You could draw both into one lane, and it's a winning situation. Matty understands, I think he knows, with communication from, you know, himself and his 2 ex-Supernova kind of laners to be able to work with, that, like, he's trying to get things done before this Nocturne is really able to make the first aggressive move with the ultimate. If he can get to level 6, obviously then there's dive potential. You can start setting up Vladimir for even more attacking maneuvers onto the top side of the map against Bejjj's Gangplank. And I think at that point also you can start even looking for dive setup into the bottom side if you can get Strompest out of lane, or at least Strompest can maintain the Seranok's position in the mid.
Currently 2-2 between the two teams. Gold League completely even, but first Dragon secured for Bay State. Dragonminkim will find a ward, but the rest of St. Louis will find him. 4 members are around this bot lane, and that's enough for DMK to say, it's time to back.
I like to imagine that the fear of the Nocturne ultimate is actually really, really impactful against St. Louis University here, because you're thinking, like, at any point, again, you have 2 globals that can be sent. Even Seranok, like, if he's got wave clear advantage over the Ahri, can show up anywhere at once. So you have to play very respectfully across the map to make sure that you don't end up getting aggressed against. This is the Vladimir taking a lot of trade damage from Bejjj, who still has the Ignite, so he should stand here. He should aggress him off the wave as much as possible, prevent him from healing up with that Q, especially with DMK in the area. The overstep is there from you know, Cozy to try to get too much damage on the Vladimir, try to push into the Gangplank too much. DMK can always press that ult button. There's no flash to get away. That ultimate will just deliver him to harm's way and likely to a kill.
It's like the idea that Nocturne makes people paranoid. just by
Literally.
existing on the map. Like he's
like
over
that
at the top side,
tooltip.
and we immediately have to look at him.
You know that tooltip that's like it says something like, oh yeah, sometimes the potential of the ability is more scary than the ability itself. I guess that this is your favorite broadcaster, ladies and gentlemen, stealing things directly from the quotes of League of Legends website.
The tooltips.
truly, I am just a tooltip replicator. That is
If you see it in your game, it was because Rebel said it, not because it was already there. Don't worry.
This is
But...
true. Ooh, we have a quick swap into top side. I like the movement from Swordblue. DMK was already here clearing his top side. And Seranok, actually, they were making a move from St. Louis to try to aggress, I think, against the Gangplank, and maybe caught wind of the fact that there were more than one member up here. Now they're ganking Bejjj.
Yeah, this is a kill for Bejjj to go down. Goes over to Cozy. The numbers advantage not in their favor. Teesum throws out the dredge line and only hits Shelly with it. Swordblue, not 6, doesn't have Solar Flare. Is going to be a bit of a scuffle around Shelly. Fear, stuns, roots, and charms. Oh my! Seranok goes in for the play, but here's the paranoia into it. Rift Herald stolen. DMK secures it, but at the sacrifice of 3 members of Bay State.
So right here, Bay State, they make this swap into topside. They give it Bejjj, and they burn a couple of ultimates on the side of St. Louis University to get here. And I kind of wanted them to aggress immediately. Like, they need to press into this as fast as possible, but instead, they buy time for the Vladimir to get back to, like, basically full health. They allow for Matty to kind of step in, and Seranok uses the ultimate really aggressively to start things off. I think he should have been looking for a pick onto the Vladimir, rather than jumping into the bulk and looking for a massive fear, because they just don't have through damage at this point, right? The Gangplank isn't there for barrels. They don't have that much, AP on the Vex to kick things off, and so because of that, it felt like it was a little bit misguided of a team fight coming out from Bay State to try something like this. But like you said, at least they grab up the Rift Herald. It's a 1k advantage, could be neutralized with a solid Rift Herald play coming out here from DMK. One ultimate into somewhere on the map should set them up right. And not to mention, of course, it means that Sophist got free time up against Doxa in the bottom lane. You can see that as accrued at least a 14 CS advantage beyond just the 2 kills from earlier.
Yeah, and you know, we did talk early in the game about how Kai'Sa is pretty item dependent. Ezreal, same way, has that Triforce completed. That is a huge item. Has completely skipped over building up those tier stacks. Said, all right, I got money. We're going straight into the big items.
Interesting. Ooh, okay.
Catches out the Leona. Swordblue, fine with it. We'll take a little bit of it. Matty goes over the wall. Here we go. Here's the collapse from the side of St. Louis, and they're looking to pounce, and they choose Swordblue. Charm doesn't connect, but the dredge line does. Strompest secures the kill.
And I'm loving this from SLU, because every single time that you see them moving in, they've got multiple members. They're ready to full commit into an engagement. And it kind of begs the question, I think, from Bay State, where they've got these globals, they should be the one making activity. So when they're the ones being aggressed against with superior numbers, you can drop, like, Cannon Barrage, right? Like, if it's available. You can drop things like the Paranoia to deny these plays. But then you are losing so much of your ability to make an aggressive play. And so right here's a trade-off. You don't really have your cooldowns because they were burnt in the previous fight. But even if you do have them, do you drop them? Because obviously I think it's a lot more of a pain to have to use those and not get something aggressive for them and let this team continue to sandbag your abilities to not let you make anything that gets yourself ahead, as opposed to just giving them away a kill. And it's set up for just an interesting dynamic that SLU has been taking advantage of for the last couple of minutes. You can see the gold disparity as like Matty and specifically Cozy has been set up for a very solid laning phase, for a very solid start into this one. It looks like Bejjj is not really falling super hard victim to the pure one-on-one. There's a Cannon Barrage.
Looking for a 1v1 kill, but the Ghost got the zoomies, and he zooms out of this engage that Bejjj was trying to find, but that is the go button for Bay State, it seems. Get back down to the bot lane, fighting over this dragon, but there's going to be 3 members. SLU slow on the rotation. The Ignite is there. Can they get the kill? They do. The shutdown is there. And now we're back to the bot lane. The Paranoia comes in, and Nautilus does fall. Solar Flare, but a beautiful cleanse from Doxa. Make sure no other members of SLU fall.
And this was the fear because, of course, Cozy's in a position where Flash and Ignite were up for Bejjj, and that means that, like, he can at any point hit you with a Trial by Far, a Q with Grasp potentially stacked on it. There's so much damage that's burst-worthy that, like, you cannot stay in this lane if you're Cozy. This is what happened on the bottom side. They barely had vision. They knew they were on Dragon. Teesum is just way too far up here. He has the support of 3 members, but look, again, you've got so much closing speed with the Nocturne ultimate, with the Vex ultimate, that you can't poke that far up until Strompest is in position for all 4 of your members to collapse in the 4-on-4 and I don't even know if you win that anyway, because again, your Ezreal's already on Trinity Force. You've got a great position for a number of your members here on Bay State. They were more than willing to take that 4-on-4 anyway, but then the fact that like you're dragging that far up, you're not prepared with all 4 members, opens up a door. Bay State take back the gold advantage, and Bejjj with that 1 kill was a shutdown goal. It's a lot of gold back to the Gangplank to help them out in the laning phase as well.
Yeah, this is what SLU has to fear, is whenever the Vets is able to get in, whenever the Nocturne, whenever they're able to make proactive moves, that's where they're most dangerous. And, you know, we're seeing SLU have a great answer to it. We were hyping up Matty earlier on about being proactive, but when they're caught on the back foot, we're seeing where the fault of this composition will lie in the early to mid, because the fact that Bay State have so many just, all right, we hit one button and we are on you. That is it. That is decisive, and that is how they want to continue to play these fights. And now we have a 3-0 Sage. This is Ezreal, who is 3-0 with this Triforce Rebel.
So when they first started constructing this roster back in the day, it was originally Invictrix, who played with him over the summer at Gateway Legends and some things, and he ended up taking a step out of the roster as the year came back in. And I remember last year they had started testing around with Sophist Sage, who is he was a player that people might recognize as being both high solo queue. He was at Scouting Grounds a couple of times actually, and so he's somebody that was on the radar for being around an amateur, but I'd never seen him on a team. And out of what seemed like nowhere, he like popped up on Bay State, never really played a game for them, and then Invictrix left, and he was the guy that they relied on. And I've heard so much about how talented that Sophist Sage really is. So putting him in on Ezreal, putting him on something that he can win with, especially in big team fights, I have a lot of faith in his ability to carry a game like this. So this is a terrifying prospect, having the Ezreal this far ahead on somebody so good.
Yeah, and Swordblue, flash forced. Strompest is here in the wings, looking to beat the reinforcements if so needed for SLU, but Dragonminkim is here, will be spotted out on a ward. And that is the immediate thing for Strompest to say, oh wait, maybe I need to come back. Matty as well. Dredgeline comes in. Swordblue able to take a good amount of damage. Soulflood doesn't connect onto his target. And Swordblue is dropped.
So there's 2 things that are going on here. Okay, I'll see if this clears the wave. I don't know if they're going to be able to save it, because they will have 3 minions. They've got the Volibear ultimate. That's going to be used.
Yep. But the Cannon Barrage comes in as well. This is stopped. They halted.
Yeah.
Oh, Seranok in the mid lane with Cozy. Cozy can't get the kill, but does put Seranok at a very low standard of HP.
So there's a couple of things that are kind of moving parts that happen over the course of this play. The first one is they're leaning 4 members on the side of SLU into bottom side. Again, having an outnumber, having a situation in which they can't burn these semi-globals to really punish you as easily when you've got that many people in a fight really does make it difficult to full kind of punish with Bay State's composition to find a counter strike. So in here, you know, they lean the 4 into bottom side. They're able to find the pick onto Swordblue. I think maybe Bay State was in between the should we drop Cannon Barrage, should we drop Paranoia and get into there. But the way that they cut this off on SLU is by moving Cozy from top into mid lane and sacrificing the top tower. This whole time, they knew that that was going to be the long-term play. But the 1 kill exchanged into the Gangplank solo tower gold, first tower gold, if I might note, into Bejjj and into the Gangplank in exchange for just the kill on bottom side. Not plates, bit of damage on the bottom lane tower, but it gets thwarted because the globals were then used to salvage the wave afterwards rather than making the counterpunch. That was restriction and restraint from Bay State that got showed right there. That wasn't around months ago. This is a very different look for this team. They would have pressed Paranoia. They would have gone in there a few months ago, right there, taking the high percentage play, making sure to put the faith into Bejjj to be able to punish this, not using anything global there to actually make the response at first, and instead to defend the tower, instead to defend the gold that SLU was trying to get in the first place.
And I love that you bring this up, because this is a roster that from Bay State that has been developing over the time span of a year, right? Like you were talking about it earlier, the history of this squad. This is a squad that used to scrap on the drop of a dime, right? Like they used to fight, and they would do so many fights that would make you scratch your head, but now they are very calm and collected inside of game number 1 with so much on the line. 3rd Dragon is secured for Bay State.
The important piece here that I want to note is that this is 3rd Dragon for them, like you had just said. They were stacking this from the beginning of the game, and it's a mechanic that now allows them to force at the next Dragon fight, right? 5 minutes from now, 22 minutes, a very early Dragon, so one of the earliest of the tournament.
Matty, is he going to get forced off this Herald? He wants it so bad. He's trying to see if he can get it. Here comes the fight. Dredgeline onto Sage. Sage is going to be able to kite this out, though. He gets 1 kill, and they're dropping more. The Paranoia comes in, cuts out the vision. Swordblue does get dropped, but they find the Kai'Sa on the side. Bets and Nocturne, the diving buddies, wreaking havoc in the back line. SLU has no choice but to...
There it is!
But there's not going to be anywhere for them to go. Strompest is the sole survivor, and Bay State have turned it up to another notch.
And here's the thing, this composition spikes faster for a number of reasons. The thing is, Gangplank has the gold to be useful, but Nocturne is powerful, Vex is very powerful, and with all the early gold that's going into Sophist, they are willing to fight here and now. It's the benefit of playing around the 22-minute Dragon, but the thing is, they catch out Matty early. They catch him at the Rift Herald to be able to generate a fight here, and they bring down this front line so quickly that now you've got these semi-globals to be able to control the fight. The Paranoia, you've got the Cannon Barrage that cuts off another access, and even if you get through both of those, you're still playing into a full health Sophist stage. You're still playing into a full health Ezreal. Really, luckily right here, Strompest presses a Q and knocks down Seranok's health bar, who pulled 3 kills, because he would have pulled the 4th if he didn't lose that health bar. He presses that and goes in with a W and absolutely kills Strompest at the end of that fight, where not for that one last Q. But man, Bay State, they find their opening again. And now they're going to be able to force it a second time. Again, 3 minutes from now, they still have this massive advantage. They've still got this very powerful team, and they are well ahead of where SLU wants to be to start taking these 5-on-5 team fights. And that's going to be around the Dragon Soul. They potentially could take either just the pure Dragon Soul themselves, or they could force a fight around it, give up the Dragon, but just end up continuing to push this lead into maybe even Baron territory. Bay State holds a lot of the cards in the game right now.
Also, while we were watching that replay, Herald was secure. Dragonminkim has that inside the inventory. This gives him more tools to continue that playmaking, and if you leave him alone, he can drop that just about anywhere, and that could be disasterific for your team. But now it looks like Seranok might be the person that is going to get pitched. Goes golden. Beautifully done. The charm still hits. He is surviving so much, buying so much time for the team, laying out so much damage, but it's just not enough. St. Louis limp away, but what do you have to pay as your price to kill Seranok?
Not just the mid inner tower, and not just a charge on the mid inhibitor tower, bottom lane as well. Because no longer, I think, is Cozy actually just outright winning the fight up against Bejjj. Now he's got magic resist. Now he's got crit. Now he's got a Trinity Force. The side lane wasn't won hard enough at the beginning of the game for the Vladimir to just sit here and bully the Gangplank in the laning phase. So now you lose both the mid, inner, and the bottom after expending a ridiculous amount just picking Seranok on the top side. This is now SLU, who are trying to make these aggressive plays earlier in the game to set themselves on a good foot to get to this 5-on-5 territory that haven't done it fast enough. They haven't been able to match Bay State. Bay State has kept a cool head. They found themselves advantages where they could use these semi-globals, use these big fights to generate kind of big gold shifts in a number of the members of their team. And now they sit, once again, with all of the control on the map, all of the control in the gold department.
And it's not from a lack of trying for Matty, right? Matty is 2-7 in terms of kills and assists. He's been a part KP. Of 100% KP right now. Like, he's trying. He has had involvement throughout the entire map. But like you said, it's been these mispositioning errors. It's been these macro mistakes that have came to affect them. That ward just went dark. You saw everybody from St. Louis pause there because they were like, oh, hold on, they're right there. Chill, chill, chill. Let's see what happens. Let's see what the button is pressed.
Okay.
The Strompest just splitting as all this is happening. Bay State doesn't seem to care.
This is something that happens consistently. I know Strompest loves to punish on the other side of the map to pull gold into his own pockets to be able to carry. He is a self-proclaimed one of the best, if not the best, team fighter inside of like the mid lane, inside of academy, amateur, that kind of area. And that's something that gets pushed a lot. I believe at the last scouting grounds, he was actually voted to be the best team fighter at the entire event. And so it's not shocking. I think our guest touched on it a little bit, but the fact that Strompest is willing to put the gold into his own pocket to carry a game like this, wanting to believe that his Ahri is capable of full 5-on-5ing against this Bay State squad, it's faith that he's got. He's an experienced member. He's a good Ahri player, and he's a good mid laner in general. And he's got faith in himself. His team's got faith in him to be able to help carry them out of this situation they find themselves in. Because in 20 seconds, they're going to have to find out. They're going to have to make a decision. I'm actually really interested. It looks like they're backing off of this They are giving the dragon, which I am in full support of. I don't think Clouddrake Cloud Soul, my apologies, full wins this game for Bay State. It's a lot you have to overcome, but it doesn't end up ending this game in favor of Bay State quite yet. And this gives you another 5 minutes before an Elder Dragon comes through, gives you potential to set up around the Baron buff to maybe look to try to push a fight in your advantage around that, which is precisely what SLU is doing right now. They are looking at the Baron, maybe a turn-off opportunity if anybody were to show up here a little bit too fast. They give up the soul. This is their attempt to turn on this play.
Yeah, but look at this. They immediately get spotted and they say, okay, we have to disengage this now. There's so many tools for when they go for the Baron play that like Bay State could just hit one button and all of a sudden their entire team is there. They have all these ultimates that can get plopped down in front of you. So I do like the control that SLU has where they see, hey, we get spotted. They can be here in the blink of an eye.
Now, the one problem that occurs from this is, like, this isn't a strategy that I'm always in favor of employing. I like being able to contest around neutral objectives and find the opportunity to take the objective, pull a couple of kills, deny the map kind of access away from Bay State. This is a situation where, again, I don't think Clouddrake ends the game, which is one big thing. But the second big thing is they are still scaling. They're still trying to get onto the 5-on-5 territory. So, SLU, your job is find an area where you don't disappoint me by not fighting. Because I have seen teams where they will end up in this case and they will never find a 5-on-5, even if they try to scale, even if they get items for their characters. They just get picked apart by things like neutral objectives that they keep bleeding out, believing they can't quite get there yet. At some point, you have to pull a trigger. You have to say, this is where we're putting our foot down. This is where we're fighting. This is where we win or lose the game. Elder Dragon's a good decision of that. I don't think Baron is obviously like a great decision if all of their vision is kicked out, which is what Bay State is doing now. Bay State clearly wants to be able to take a fight like this, so they are going to bait around this Baron for the next 5 minutes as much as possible. And SLU's job
those barrels, Matty took a huge amount of damage. Solar Flare goes in. He's Xenoblades in. He's going in deep, and he's going to go golden. Volibear has to use his ult to try and survive, but Dragonminkim, he is in deep. He is in the back line. The stuns are coming in. The True Shot Barrage is able to solidify one kill, but it is a 1-for-1. But St. Louis is the team that has to retreat as the damage is coming in too hot, too furious. And look at this, is an inhibitor broken open by Bay State.
So all they're going to get is just the inhibitor. The fight ends up just being the 1-for-1, and it's not much gold, because again, DMK was not carrying shutdown gold right there, so it just ends up being the kill against Doxa, which is their consistent damage through the fight after a lot of the cooldowns had been burnt. You're going to take that, I think, if you're Bay State in a number of areas, but again, the inhibitor was all the important part. Even if you only get the inhibitor, absolutely worthwhile, because it sets you up for even harder variants of this Baron bait that you can use to bait out to go these 5-on-5s that right now St. Louis doesn't want to take. They are so
This is the same place that you got caught before, but this time it's turning around. Swordblue was too low for the play, and now it's Vladimir here to play with Sage. Lots of damage being traded back. This is the member that has that huge shutdown, as you were talking about, but they cannot lock down this Ezreal. He is able to slip away.
He is. The one kill going over to SLU, though. They had all 4 members in one area. They didn't quite have the damage here on Bay State to work through a bunch of this front line between, like, Teesum being able to stand at the front, and between, I think, even at this point, you have Cozy being able to stand at the front with the amount of health that he's got. So you can see there's still power in SLU's composition. They're getting to the point where they feel great. Look at Strompest right now. 6 kills. 4 completed item with an 18-stack Magi. This is the Ahri that they want to be able to help carry them through the fight when they dictate it is time. The mid inhibitor makes this problematic. It's going to mean that they have to catch it consistently on their side of the map, which opens up space for Bay State to set up around the Baron buff. That's where they want to capitalize on. They want to blind out all of SLU and take the advantage with things like the Paranoia and these semi-globals, attacking in the midst of the jungle, being able to pick off 1 piece, 2 pieces of SLU so they can't feel comfortable in the 5-on-5, and taking the Baron to set up this Elder Dragon that they believe they can end the game.
Believe that they can. They want to try and force that fight because we've seen how good it looks for Bay State when they're able to find those straight up 5v5s, right? It has been when they play on even footing. It's been Bay State coming out ahead in a lot of these fights, but it has been these unique carries that have been coming out. Strompest, as you were talking about, ever so comfortable at being able to team fight, feeling themselves in terms as a solo player to be able to take those resources and transition those into dubs. 6-0-2, and like you said, is looking powerful with the itemization alongside a very, very tanky Volibear. Could be a scary concern for Bay State that they still have to respect. And, you know, you got to respect the fact that SLU hasn't let the gold lead actually expand to an outrageous amount, right? The gold lead has stayed the same for the past 10 minutes.
Okay. Interestingly, it was actually Sophist kind of poking away at some of the members there to make sure that Bay State stays honest. Ooh.
This could be a catch, but beautiful use. They don't get the spell shield for Dragonminkim. He's trying to fight this out, but this is not somebody he can duel with. Needs the cavalry, the reinforcements to bolster him. You get the ultimate from Strompest. No Spirit Rush for the Nets fight, potentially.
Yeah, biggest thing, they have a minute until Dragon. They're trying to slow down the backs, trying to slow down the ability of SLU to actually get back on the map and compete with them for some of these waves, to compete with them for some of this vision. You saw right there the nice vision toggle to show us that there is no setup at all for SLU across the map. They've got nothing. They're walking in blind to these objectives that Bay State were there. They weren't able to force around the Baron. I'll give them that. The gold lead, not super exacerbated at this point for Bay State. Again, like that 3K advantage that you're talking about. They're still in the advantageous position. They still have the Cloud Soul. They've got resources in their possession to work with around this neutral objective. And the Elder Dragon, the Baron, they're both humongous shifts for this game. Bay State playing incredibly respectfully. Despite having this lead, they know how strong the Strompest is. They know that they need to be able to take off this, this kind of mantle level 5-on-5, be able to take this fight effectively around this big neutral objective that now St. Louis has successfully stalled to. They are the first ones in the river. They're the ones that want to take the fight around this. They know how strong they are. We'll see now whether or not Bay State can live up to it. Can they take this advantage? Can they take these massively impactful ultimates and apply them properly?
Dredge line does go wide. Sage is fully built up, has that Maromana fully stacked, and has a Maw as well. Looking to lay out some damage and has the survivability to back it up as well. Seeing a little bit of the poke war. SLU start up Elder. Charm goes wide. Solar Flare hits onto 2 members. Ahri goes golden, but Sage is dominating. Finds 2 kills. Looking to continue this on forward. They press them off. The Vladimir gets soloed by DMK. And SLU completely routed at the Elder Dragon. Bay State are calling to end the game.
It is only Doxa and Matty that have to make a sizable defense right here against Bay State's pushing. They've got 4 members. It's a bold call. They could have sit on Elder Drake. They could have sit on Bear, but they're afraid of Matty stealing it, so they just want to end the game now.
They want to end the game, but look at this.
The inhibitor's
is
back.
Dropped down so low. The inhibitor is back. And this is a little bit of a sad moment for Bay State. They were looking like they could have been poised to possibly end, but now they've been fended off of not having the timer down pat for inhibitor.
And this is the benefit to keeping your jungler alive on the side of SLU. They are defending Matty to make sure he doesn't fall. He can always flip an objective. He can always smite steal. And now, actually, Bay States are the ones on the back foot. They have to overstay because they pushed in to try to end the base and the inhibitor respawn. They didn't actually time it properly. Now they're stuck on the map without the full reset coming through, without anything else.
They catch up Bejjj.
And they found Bejjj.
Bejjj is going to be able to
Strompest
escape with the rest of the members. They're looking for Strompest. Strompest teleported when nobody else was at. Sulfur not going to be able to connect. Dragonminkim is here for the flank. Possibly they get a nice route. Sage has to shift away. The True Shot Barrage comes in clutch to make sure he stays just out of range. Vladimir zoning off Bejjj from being able to rejoin his teammates inside of the river. And the skirmish continues on. These 2 teams continue to scrap it out.
They're not out of the woods yet, though. SLU might have thought, because we dropped enough of the health bars, enough of the resources from Bay State, that they're not able to. Look at this. Cannon Barrage almost back up. Paranoia, the ultimate from Vex, all of them able to aggress so from such a far distance.
Paranoia, it comes in. They're looking for the play. They're going to be able to find it. Sage is going to be able to find a huge bit of damage coming in. But the Vladimir able to pop 1, but not able to find any of the key members. Strompest, the sole survivor yet again, but he will not live to tell this tale. He gives his life, but it's enough for Dragonminkim to continue the chase onto him. True Shot Barrage. The darkness surrounds. An ace for Bay State, and that's gonna be the game.
That will. Finally, they're able to find one. I was really worried Bay State had overstayed their welcome by going back up mid lane and taking the inhibitor, trying to take the inhibitor. But the fact that they were able to find a pickoff, burn that ultimate from Strompest, keep him away from the fight, and then turn back into the river with all of these very long-range engagement tools, it was enough for them to take the dragon, or the objective, whatever they wanted. But in this case, because again, that mid inhibitor had been brought down, the wave was stacked, they just walked it right up mid lane, and Bay State took game number 1.
Bro, dancing on a knife's edge is the only way I can talk about that with Bay State. Oh my gosh, it was such a series of things that almost went wrong for them at the very end around that Elder Dragon, the back and forth. But this is kind of what we were expecting when we saw these 2 teams that never say die, both teams wanting to fight it out. And it was just a little bit too little too late for SLU, it felt like at the end, right?
On one hand, like this whole game was kind of dictated because it felt like both teams felt the need to win a full fight before they could go for a really big objective, right? The first 4 dragons were a little bit different because those were taken in a number of different ways by the side of Bay-State. But by the fact that like Baron wasn't ever dictated, Elder Dragon wasn't dictated because no one was winning the pure 5-on-5, no one felt comfortable for that, was very, very strange. But that gives us more exciting gameplay to talk about because now we get to sit here anxious of what those 5-on-5s are going to look like in the right time. And Bay-State, the fact that, again, they were on such lower resource than what they was held by SLU, and were still able to bring out a fight win after having overextended, after having pushed into the base unnecessarily, was really incredible. Again, this speaks volumes to the development that Bay-State has been able to make for their program and for their team over just the last couple of months, and it's what it makes them such an exciting kind of addition into this top 16, maybe even into the round of 8 as they've taken the 1-0 advantage.
Well, we got development being shown on broadcast, but we have our desk ready to show us how this series is going to develop further. So we're going to throw it on over to them. So gents, go ahead and take it on away.
Thank you, Travysty, and what a game to get us started with day 2 of the round of 16. Oh my goodness, man, I swear we are just game after game after game. They're just so close, so intense, but it really did feel like we had a great showing. Let's get right into the analysis, though, and let's start with the draft. Solo, I know that you have some thoughts on some different picks for these teams, so I want to hear your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a firm believer draft matters a lot, and when I saw SLU's team comp, I was thinking I think I want to change my pick now because I think it's like more or less 5 AP. I don't really get what they're trying to do. I mean, it's like a pseudo dive comp, but you're also diving into like Ezreal GP and like Nocturne Darkness. It just really felt like their whole team identity is getting countered by by Red Team, and I don't know. It seems like quite a mess. I don't even think the lane matchups are good either. I mean, I think it should be pretty much 3 winning lanes for Red side as long as Volibear doesn't get anything off in the early game. So, pretty disastrous first game as far as draft goes.
I want to highlight the importance of like a Nocturne pick and a Gangplank pick. The global ultimates from Bay-State are so impactful, just in general in amateur/collegiate play, but in this game obviously. And then I think it's important to note that SLU probably prepared some of this. We saw extreme priority on Volibear throughout the course of their time. We've seen Strompest playing a ton of Ahri, and Vlad just got buffed. Maybe there's some preparation there. So I feel like SLU got what they wanted, but maybe just didn't show up when they're really mid-game oriented 4 AP comp.
Yeah, I remember you saying that about how they kind of, they were looking for the Vlad into GP, and they definitely opted into it. But as we saw this game, like, when you have that much CC to deal with between Leona, and especially the Nocturne Fear, I mean, Nocturne just ends up marking the Vlad every team fight, and he doesn't even have Flash because he's running the Ghost Ignite that he has no way of really impacting the game. And he's just getting soloed out by the Nocturne while his team can't even see what's happening.
So as a pro player, Solo, what do you do when you spend so long prepping a strat and prepping champion picks and it gets to match day and it falls flat on its face?
I mean, hopefully they've worked on a lot of stuff and they got some options. I think this one's pretty easy to chalk up as just like, maybe they tunneled on the Vlad pick because top lane definitely has the most diversity in terms of building a team comp. Okay. And it definitely felt like they tunneled on that and they're like, oh, we got our counter pick, let's play around it. And I know he made a mistake in lane where he ended up losing his lead, but regardless, I think a different champion could have maybe rounded it out and made it okay because they do have a lot of playmaking when it comes to Volley and Ahri, so they could have snowballed maybe, and if top lane kind of filled out a little bit better, then they might have had a chance to team fight a little bit.
Okay.
But they gotta figure it out. I mean,
yeah,
well, this was not it, but we could switch sides, play red side, maybe get your counter pick for top lane, and maybe you can build something a little bit more stable.
I like it. But let's get straight into the replays for this game, give you guys a little bit of a breakdown of what happened. And I feel like the first really impactful moment came at about the 8-minute mark, a Herald fight that I know you were very interested in, TJ.
Yeah, so I think the expectation here in the game is that GP kind of chills, does a little bit of nothing for a bit, and then scales up and controls mid-game fights. But unfortunately, we had an early death from Bejjj, and then here a death knowing that Herald Timer is coming up. This sets SLU up in a position where they might be able to push their very mid-game oriented comp into a lead. Unfortunately for SLU, that doesn't exactly pan out. But when you take a look at some of the setup here, nothing's really going on. We see the Nocturne ultimate super late. We see that Ezreal is still hitting bot turret instead of rotating over to fight. And the question becomes, is Bejjj trying to contest this or not? They didn't really have a clear identity there of what they were doing on the map, I don't think. And that resulted in them losing a bunch when really it wasn't necessary.
Yeah, makes sense. So, I mean, I feel like we see the GP kind of lacking there. But Solo, I know just a couple minutes later, there was a play where GP bounces back into the game that you wanted to talk about.
Oh, yeah. I mean, man, GP was definitely having a rough early game. I think both those deaths are pretty terrible. I definitely think you could play around it. But he ends up getting the solo kill, which kind of turns the game around and coincides with them getting the dragon fight as well. Top lane was looking pretty tragic up until this point, and it seemed like Vlad actually could carry. But after he pulled this one off, it was like, wow, okay, this is GP is actually, the strongest character now. He's kind of Thanos right now. And
what is this?
Yeah, so after this, I was like, wow, GP's strong. Like, he's not going to get dumped by Vlad for the rest of the lane. Until he gets to mid game, he can just power farm his serpent coins. So yeah, that was really big, and the dragon fight that happened as well kind of solidified early game and was like, I don't see how SLU is going to come back when they just start stacking MR now.
They really kept that ball rolling, right? They get control of the game right there about the 10-minute mark, and they really never let go of the gas pedal for the rest of the game. TJ, what happened at the end of the game?
Well, I mean, at this point, Bay State is like so ridiculously far ahead. SLU obviously had a mid-game comp that needed to accelerate. They weren't able to do that. And so here we're just kind of on a closing out fight where Bay State does their job. We see an early Nocturne ult, finally. They were kind of late throughout the course of the fight. And that causes so much chaos throughout a fight. Like, really think about being a player and what this is like as you have a Vex ult flying, Ezreal ult flying, potential Leona ults. Like, it's really hard to play these situations. And obviously Bay State plays it. They get some kills, funny little play from Strompest or Seranok to try to get a final kill. It doesn't go his way, but they do take the win, and that is what matters. So congratulations to Bay State for playing that fight properly, and I'm hopeful that it continues.
Yeah, shout out to Seranok, because we were talking about him being a kind of like a mobile turret kind of mage player. And then he busts out the Vex, and he was getting in there. There was not very much hesitation. He was sending in a lot of those fights, and that's kind of what you need when you run a Nocturne. You need people to get in there with you and cause a lot of havoc. So, very impressive from him to kind of have a different play style for this match.
We do have word from production that we are swapping sides for this game, so SLU will be on the red side. Solo, I know you talked a little bit about it, but some real quick thoughts on what you think that might mean for draft.
I think they're definitely going to look to counterpick top. I don't know if they want to ban GP, because if, their answer is going to be Vlad, I don't think that's, I don't know, maybe if they have a different jungle, maybe if Lucian's up, they can pair it. But I think if they go with the Lucian ban again versus SLU, then I think SLU probably needs to ban GP if they don't have anything else they want to use against it. I think as well, if Jinx is up, they should take Jinx instead of going 4-5 and letting it get banned. But for the most part, red side's a little bit easier to draft about nowadays. So let's just make sure they get a good. Let's make sure they're like 1-2 gives them a lot of variety and a lot of options. Try not to get into a big AP thing.
I think draft is important. Don't mean to discount it. Stupid OP when you get great counter picks and all that. What I want to see is Challenger players playing Challenger League of Legends, because we cannot be 6 camping into deaths. We cannot be over chasing kills. We cannot be dying on 440 timers. I want better, more disciplined League of Legends for both teams, because I think there are opportunities for both teams to play better. So that's what I'm most looking forward to in this next game.
Yeah, I will say top lane for Bay State was pretty shaky. So yeah, I would think that being able to get a little bit more advantage for Cozy Shroud. He looked like he was doing a good time versus Bejjj. So I don't know, play around that guy. That seemed like their best winning point this game, and I think if they had a bit of a better opportunity for Aside from getting solo killed, but we'll ignore that. But I think if Cozy gets a good opportunity, he can carry. So they should probably work around that. That seemed like their best opportunity.
You heard it from our analysts here, but we got to get into game number 2. The players are ready, the casters are ready. Take it away.